right, we are going to start the page construction, or the embellishments and the flips and flaps and all that for our page pieces. I'm going to start with page 1 on the front. So remember, our pages are 8 by 8, okay? And for the first page, you're going to want to cut 8 pieces that are 8.5 by 4, 6 pieces that are 8.5 by a half, and 1 that is 9 by 4. Okay, that's an 8. So let me show you the scoring. I'm going to start with the pieces that measure 8.5 by 4, and you're going to place the 8.5 inches across the top of your scoreboard. Go ahead and score at 4 and at 8, and you're going to do that to all 8 pieces. So again, that's the 8.5 inches across the top. Score at 4 and at 8. Now, these are going to be 2 separate slider type mechanisms. So you're going to have a pile of 4 and a pile of 4. So once you have the scores of these done, you're going to go ahead and burnish those. And we're going to glue them together so they look kind of like a pocket. And then I'll burnish it once I have it closed, just to make sure that everything lines up nice and neat. Okay. And then let's go ahead and just bring your burnishing tool down so that this lays flat. And go across that top. Okay, so that's what we're going to make. 8 of those. So I have made 4. This is 5. Let's go ahead and finish making those real quick. I've already done the burnishing, so this goes pretty fast. I just do a light burnish on that halfway mark on the 4-inch score until I glue this down. And then I kind of use my hands as a guide to make sure it goes to the top and the sides evenly. Then I push down and burnish more on that other end. So what we're making is a belly band that has 2 pull-out features. And it'll make more sense once we have it put together here. And now my last one. And I'll show you, I put one together already, so it'll make more sense, like I said, when you see it. All right. Oh, I don't like how that one, oh, that's pretty good. So this is the mechanism that we're making, and you pull it out. Oopsie. It's not connected yet. So that you have 4 different places to place pictures, and then it folds up. Okay. So let me try that again. If I hold the bottom one a little bit better, it'll be attached to something, so that will help it. You just slide those down. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and put those together. You're going to want 3 pieces for each mechanism of the 8.5 by half-inch strips. 3 per mechanism. So what you're going to need to do is place this half-inch strip through the bottom opening, and then I just lightly crease, not a real firm one, because you might need to adjust it a little bit. Okay, and I'm pushing it all the way down here, and I'm placing the glue on the inside of that half-inch. then I'm going to slide the next piece through there. So I'm going to slide that in like so. And then I'm going to bring it over. And I'm going to tuck this underneath and then press down. There it is. So then you have that slider feature. Okay, so now on the next one, the one we ended with, you're going to stick one of the 1/2-inch strips in. Lightly bend it over. And if you want, you can do more than 4 panels. I'm just doing 4. You could do 5, you could do 3. So then you take the opening of the next one, slide that in, line it up. This is the part that gets a little tricky because I got to lay this little piece down flat. And it gets... There we go, maybe. Okay, so now we have 3. And now I'll do the last one. Place that 1/2-inch strip down here, bend it over lightly, glue on the inside, place this one in, and then bring it over. Lift up the panel. And burnish. Okay. All right, so then we have 2 of these. And now let's go ahead and take your 4 by 9-inch piece, and you're going to score at 1/2 and at 8.5. And then we're going to burnish that. And what's going to happen is we're going to attach these. So we want to make sure we're gluing them on right. I want them to go up. Okay. If you want yours to come down, then you would just glue it the opposite way, but they're going to fit side by side on this belly band. Okay. And that's going to be glued to the middle of our page. And then under the belly band, we'll put a ribbon so we can tie these closed. And then we'll have a little space on the top and the bottom. So after we attach the belly band, we will need to paper the base. So I'm going to go ahead and attach the belly band first without the pieces glued on. And I'm going to put this on my scoreboard here so that I can find the middle, which is 4. And I'm just going to try and center that like so. that a good burnish. And now we'll place our pattern paper underneath, and because our pages are 8 by 8, we're going to put a 7 7/8 by 7 7/8 inch piece. So I'm going to look through my papers to see which one I want, and then we're going to go ahead and attach these next. Okay, so this is another reason why we have such wider gussets, is because I do have some thicker elements. Inked my edges, glued this down. Here is one of them that I've already put together that kind of shows you what it's going to look like. I got to hold on to this still, but it'll be attached. There's a pull tab here so people know, pull that forward like so. Okay, so let's do the other one together. That's going to go right here. Again, you want to double check that you're putting things on the right way. And I want it to open up. So this is going to be my front piece, which is 3 7/8 by 3 7/8. Okay. That looks a hair longer. Let me... All right. So let's go ahead and I do this one first. Let's go ahead and center that. And you can cut out a circle. You can cut out just a little rectangle to use as a tab. You can use your punches. I had a punch, so I'm going to lift this forward a little bit, and then I'm just going to glue that. I'm going to center it just like so. And so this is 4, so I wanted about 2. And I want to look at the other one to see if I have it about the same height. I think that looks good. All right, so the other 3 pieces are also 3 7/8 by 3 7/8. Because my paper's not directional, it doesn't matter how I have this out, but I'm going to start with the same color I did on this one. So I'm going to do the light blue. No, is that right? I'm going to have the light blue first. And so I've already inked it, and when I glue it, I have to tuck it underneath that one a little bit, like so. Okay. So have it all the way opened. Okay. Now we'll do the next one, which is the darker blue that I have. Slide it underneath. And burnish it down. I feel like that needs a little, oh, maybe not. Okay, and then the last one is that cream color. Now, because we're having these open to the top and not the side, I don't know if this would make a difference or not, but I really don't think I'm going to need seam binding or anything to keep it closed. It's going to stay closed. Ooh, fighting with this one a little bit. close enough. Okay. What did I do? Something stuck. Okay. So this is how it's going to go on my belly band. So let's bring that over, and it should fit like so. It's going to be a tight squeeze, but it should be just fine. So I'm going to do this one first. I'm going to move it all as far to the edge here as I can. And I do want to give it a solid coating of glue, so because we are going to be pulling on it a little bit more, I'd rather have too much than not enough. All the way to the edge. All right. So then, because it's a belly band, you'll be able to stick some mats down behind it. And if you want a little stopper, I think I might put something down here just so that it stops. Okay, let's see. That's going to be about right. Yep. Now the next one. I think that's good enough. Okay. Before I give it a final, there we go. Give it a good burnish. So the reason why mine is getting caught is because it's where I had the, there we go, the 1/2 inch that we glued shut. All right, so see, I might want, yeah, I'm gonna want some seam binding or something. Let's see here. Before I do that, I'm gonna put a button down here, I think. And that will stop our, yeah, I'll glue a button down here as a stopper. And if you want one here and one here, you can do that. And now I just need to decide what I want to use for the closure. The dark blue, maybe? No. Maybe this color. I'll just kind of have to play with it. I don't know that I want to use this because I think I want to use this for my closure. But that would be kind of cute, I think. Let's see. And I'm not going to glue it on. I'm just going to have it loose. Nope, that's too close. Yep, I'll probably use the off-white. All right. So then now I can go ahead and glue my 2 little buttons. I think I'll do 2 as a stopper for my mats. All right, that's all we're going to do for the front of page 1. I'm going to give you the measurements now for the interactive elements for the back of page 1. So here was our front. We're going to turn this over, and we are going to have a flap. So I need you to cut one piece that is 8.5 by 8. Let me write that down for you. So one at 8.5 by 8. And on the 8.5 inch side, you're going to score at 1/2. Score at 1/2. Go ahead and burnish, fold that over. Let's miter those corners. And this is going to be the flap that we're going to attach to the back of page 1. Okay? If you want to corner around, you can. I don't know if I'm going to yet or not. So the piece that we're going to make 2 of these elements is we're going to have an element that you can place here. We are going to glue, when we glue this down, we're going to glue on 3 sides so that we can put a tag in there. But then this will pull out and then open one more time. So you might have seen something similar to this before. Okay, so I've made one to show you the direction that we're headed. And then when we turn the page, there's going to be another one of those on the base page. Okay, so like I said, I made one. Let's go ahead and make the next one. I'll go ahead and give you the measurements for that. You're going to need one at 8 by 11. That's an 8. That looks really terrible. You're going to need one that is 6.5 by 10.5. One that is 1 by 6 3/4, and one that is 1 by 3. Okay, so once you have those cut, let's go ahead and do our scoring. Let's start with our piece that is 8 by 11, and let's start with the 11 inches across the top of our scoreboard, and we're going to score at 6 inches. And then rotate it so that you have your 8 inches across the top and score at 1/2 on each end. So half on that end, that would be 7.5 on this end. Okay, let's move that off to the side. We'll do all of our scoring at once. Find your 1 by 3 piece, place the 3 inches across the top, and you're going to make 2 score marks, 1 1/8. And then your second one is 2 1/4. Move that one to the side. Your 1 by 6 3/4 inch piece is the next one. Place the 6 3/4 inches across the top. You're going to score at 1/2 on each end. So that's 1/2 and 6 1/4. And we have one final piece here. That is our 6.5 by 10.5. Place the 10.5 across the top. Score at 5 3/4. Okay, so I'm going to bring my mat back. And I'm going to do my burnishing. Okay, so on this piece, I have these short on top of the longer piece. I'm going to open that up, and I am going to do some corner rounding. So on the short side, not the long side, I'll do that. I'm going to close it, and at the top and the bottom on the folded side, we're going to do that one more time so that it looks like that. Okay, let's move that to the side. Go ahead and burnish the rest here. Make sure it lines up nice and neat. And on this one, before we burnish, you'll notice that there is a shorter side and a longer side. We want this to become a pocket, so we're going to need to cut off some of this these half-inch strips. So I have the short side on top. I'm going to miter at the top here. And I have the score line right here. I want this to be a tab, so I'm also going to angle cut to the score. Okay, so that when it's gone, it'll be angled top and bottom. And now I need to get rid of these 1/2 inch strips by cutting just on the inside of the line, just a hair. Taking off both of them. I gotta fine tune that one here. So I do want to do one more corner rounding section here. I'm going to corner round these two on the long side. like so. Now we can burnish. Okay, let's hold off on gluing this for right now. We need to build the mechanism so that we can have that slide out feature. So take your 6 3/4 inch piece and then your 3-inch piece, and we're just going to glue this so that it's like a tube, a flattened tube. And I put glue on the short end, and I'll place the long end on top. Okay, I have a little bit of excess glue I can just wipe off there. So you can see it's open, it's like a tube. And let's go ahead and feed that onto that 6-inch strip, like so. I'm going to place the pocket feature on my scoreboard, and this is 7 inches long, so I want to find the 3.5 inch mark, and I'm going to center this mechanism at the 3.5. So let's glue one end at a time. So that little 1/2 inch section, I'm just going to center that all the way to the outside edge, like so. And I got to wipe up any excess glue. And then let's go ahead and place glue on that second 1/2 inch piece. And when we fold it down, it's not going to go all the way to the center, and that's totally fine. So I want to lay it down nice and flat. Oops. Give that a good push. Okay, so this is the mechanism that will attach the pull-out. All right, so we're going to place the side that we did not corner round. We're going to glue that onto that little buckle right here. So I'm moving it toward the center. I'm going to put glue on it. And I want to make sure that this edge meets the edge here, and I want to look top and bottom to make sure that it's centered. And then I'll just go ahead and burnish that onto that little buckle that we added. And now we're going to close our pocket. I'm going to glue one side at a time, and when I glue this down, you'll see that it kind of hits this paper, so I want to make sure that I put the 1/2 inch under the paper. So let's go ahead and put glue on the 1/2 inch. And before I lay it down, I'm going to tuck the paper inside of that 1/2 inch. So the 1/2 inch is underneath. Same way with this side. When we put glue on the 1/2 inch, before we glue it down, we want to put this paper up inside of the 1/2 inch. So I'm going to put this sideways here. And I'm going to lay it down, but I want to tuck our pull-out feature underneath. Okay, so then we'll just tuck that inside there. So now we're going to attach it to our book, and remember, we just want to glue it on 3 sides. Let's see. I have a feeling that I'm going to want our flap to have, I'm going to go ahead and, let's go back because I don't want it to be bulky. And it's okay if this flap doesn't go all the way to the end of the book. So we had scored at 1/2 on the 8.5 inch side. I'm also going to score at 3/4. So I have a little gusset here. That way it'll lay nicer. So here's our back of our page. So you'll see that there's a little bit of a space here, which is totally fine. I think I'm going to go ahead and corner round these. And we're just going to glue the 1/2 inch section onto our book like so. And we're going to want to go all the way to the end. So I'm going to turn this sideways. And I'm just going to lay that 1/2 inch all the way to the edge. Getting glue on there. It's a good thing we cover it with paper. So now we have that gusset so that when we glue this one in, it's not going to be so bulky. It'll give it some lift, okay? Now, before I glue this one in, I do want to put pattern paper on here first. So go ahead and put your 7 7/8 by 7 7/8 inch pattern paper. I would then put my pattern paper on this, then I'm going to glue it down. And I want to make sure that it goes underneath that flap so that you don't want it too far like that. I'm going to center mine, and I will glue it on 3 sides like the letter U. And then I'll be able to put a tag in there also. Okay. Same way here. Before you glue this here, you're going to want to put your pattern paper on first. This one is not 7 7/8. It's 7 7/8 inches tall, but it ended up being 7 3/4. So we're going to go 7 5/8 inches by 7 7/8 for your pattern paper. Okay, put your pattern paper on this, then you can glue it together. So that gives you a lot of space for some extra pictures. And again, that's why we made our gussets a little bit wider. All right, let's move on to page 2. All right, we're ready to get started on page 2, the front and the back. So I've done some pre-cutting. Let me show you what I've cut so far. On the front page, you're going to need 2 pieces that are 8 by 5.5, 2 that are 3.5 by 9, 12 that are 3.5 by 5.5, and 2 that are 1.5 by 9. That'll be for the front. And the back page, you're just going to need 6 cut at 2.5 by 4 1/4. Okay, so let's go ahead. Put my page off to the side. So the 2 pieces that measured 5.5 by 8, you're going to make 2 score marks. You're going to score at 1/2. Oops, let me do it this way. And at 3/4. So 1/2 and 3/4. Do that on both pieces. And then let's go ahead. Well, I'll just go ahead and do all the scoring first. So I did that to both. You can go ahead and burnish if you want, or you can just wait as we go. The 12 pieces that are 3.5 by 9, 3.5 by 5.5, score at 1/2 inch on the 5.5 inch across the top, 1/2. 5.5 across the top, 1/2. And you're going to do that to all 12 pieces. Okay. The 2 pieces that were 1.5 by 9, score at, put the 9 inches across the top, score at 1/2 and at 8.5 on both pieces. And the 2 pieces that were 3.5 by 9, put the 9 inches across the top, score at 1/2 and at 8.5. Okay, so now let's start our burnishing and our cutting. And what we're going to end up having is 2 belly band or 2 waterfalls that are also acting as belly bands. They'll be somewhat side by side. We'll have a flap over the top and a flap coming up from the bottom, and that will give us a lot of room for pictures. So these 2 pieces, as we burnish them, the 3.5 by 9, these we don't have to miter those 1/2 inch strips because it's not going to the end of a page. So that can be left the way it is. As we burnish the 3.5 by 5.5 inch pieces, those also we do not want to miter because when you do a waterfall, you want that 1/2 inch intact. So you can decide if you would like to round the corners if you want. I'm going to go ahead and leave mine squared off, I believe. I've kind of changed my mind on this page a couple of times, so hopefully I'll be happy with the outcome. I'm trying to get, because I only have 3 pages, I want to get as many pictures in there as I can, so I'm trying to add more room for the photos. This is the 1.5 inch piece. You can, again, you don't have to miter. You know what? Let's do the mitering on this one. So just take a snip at an angle on each end. It doesn't have to be very much. Okay. And the other one also. Let me go ahead and burnish first. So these will become little pockets underneath of a flap. And so I don't want bulk behind that flap. So we're going to end up just gluing the bottom closed rather than having that 1/2 inch on the bottom to add more thickness. All right. So that will be, those are the pieces for the front. Now let's go ahead and might as well work on the back. These were the 6 pieces that were 2.5 by 4 1/4. Go ahead and burnish those. Again, we do not need to do the mitering on this one, but we are going to turn them into a tag look. So we're going to be doing some angle cutting. So if you have a punch that angle cuts, you might want to find that, or you can just eyeball it, or if you don't want to angle, you don't have to, I guess. So I do have a punch that I'll use. Let's see. Yeah, I'll use this one. So on the opposite end of the 1/2 inch, I'm just going to angle cut. Now you can do a more defined cut if you want, but being as I have the punch, it just makes it easier to do that. But some people like their tags to have more of a angle. And we will be punching a hole in these also, but not until we paper them. And we will be putting seam binding to help keep them closed here. All right, so let's go ahead and work on the front first. So as you have your base page, remember what the top is. So we should have it open on the left and at the top. And I'm going to start by placing the flaps on. So we're going to put those down first. Let's go ahead and miter the 1/2 inch section, not the 1/4 inch section. And you'll have 2 of those. I forgot to burnish this one. And again, if you want to corner round these or angle cut them, you can. Sometimes it's hard to miter when you have those close score marks. Okay. I'm trying to decide if I do want those angled. Maybe I want them corner rounded instead. On both pieces. All right. So let's go ahead and glue these on. Just put glue on the 1/2 inch section, and we're going to go all the way to the edge, top and bottom. I'm going to turn mine. I know that this is sideways, but to me it's easier to see if I have it on sideways or if I look at it sideways. Let's see. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, so we have that 1/4 inch gusset. The glue will dry clear. And let's place the bottom one the same way. Go all the way to the edge. I am going to miter on the 1/2 inch. And just put glue on the 1/2 inch. So they're stuck. Now I do not need a ribbon closure, but that is an option. And if you want to use a ribbon closure, just remember to put it on before you put your decorative paper on. Get rid of that excess glue. Okay, so this is what it'll look like. I am going to put a piece of paper of some sort, probably, so that this can kind of tuck into it to keep it closed. I might have a cut apart or something that will be used as a tuck spot, just to make sure it doesn't flap around. Now on the inside, we're going to be putting 2 waterfalls that also act as belly bands. Okay. And so they're not going to go all the way to the edges so that we can stick something underneath and see that. So let's go ahead and do the other belly band just like this. You do not have to miter these, remember. And so I'm going to turn this and use this as a guide so that I know where to glue and line it up nice and neat on all these little flappy doos. So this is, I have the 1/2 inch pieces tucked underneath, and I'm going all the way to the top. And I want to make sure everything, that's not all the way to the top, that everything lines up. Give it a burnish. Okay, we'll come back and burnish again just to make sure it closes real nice. So now as you do the next one, you just bump it up against that 1/2 inch piece. I'm gonna use my scoreboard to help me line it up. Burnish it. Continue doing that with all of your pieces. So that should give you quite a bit of space. Now, for photos, you'll probably have to trim them. But if you take pictures like I do, there's usually there's enough border that you can trim it. Two more. Okay. Last one. All right, so there's our belly band / waterfall. So now I just kind of close it and go over all of the flaps real firmly with my burnishing tool so it lays nice and flat. Now you can choose to paper it now before you attach it to the book or to the page or whatever. I usually would do that, but to save time for the video, I'm going to go ahead and do that later. So we want to be able to put mats behind. So we're not going to, I want you to be able to tell that there's space behind. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to place glue. Let's see how I want to do this. Do I want them together? Maybe I will, so it's easier. And then we can just put little strips here. Yeah, let's do that. So we're going to put them together. And then when we paper the back, the bottom, we'll just put like 2-inch strips underneath to save paper so we don't have to paper the whole thing. So we want 3.5 and 3.5 is 7, and this is 8 inches. So we want a 1/2 inch in on each side, okay? And we want to make sure that we glue it so that it doesn't buckle with our flaps here. So I'm going to go ahead and just take a pencil and mark the 1/2 inch on each side. Well, actually, I only need to do it on one side because once I lay down one, the other one will be ready. So I just have a guide as to how far in to put it. And we're going to be covering that pencil mark anyway, just as kind of a guide. All right, that way just kind of, I can eyeball it a little bit better. So we're going to glue it in between the score marks. Don't go over. And just line that up with your 1/2 inch marks like so. Now I'm going to hold this and make sure that these close fine, and they do. So I'm going to go ahead and put my glue on. Both sides, both 1/2 inch sections. And I'm going to lay it down. Lightly. Make sure it folds up and down, and it does. And now you can burnish. So the next one, we want to bump up against this. Make sure you're not overlapping it, but right next to it, and that should be a 1/2 inch also. You don't want to, limit the pages being able to turn. So right up against, but not overlapping. Okay, that looks good. Okay, so that should give us quite a few opportunities to add pictures. Okay, now the pieces that were 1.5 inches, I was going to put those right here and then just glue the bottom shut so that you have a little tuck spot. Okay, down here, then things would be upside down. Maybe I'll put this one, I don't know. I could corner around these, or I could just I'm just gonna put the pocket on upside down. I don't know if I like that. Oh, let's just go with it. So just putting glue on the 1/2 inch and a skinny line across the bottom. And do not go over the score marks. And line it up side to side. Okay. I didn't do that too close because we haven't put any paper. Now I'm not going to paper all of these. I might just end up putting little strips down at the bottom. I don't know yet. I'm worried about it getting too bulky. So we did a 1/4 of an inch gusset. We'll see. I'll just have to play it by ear. And then let's do the other one at the top then. And then a thin bead down at the bottom. Nothing will fall out because it's at the score mark, but there we go. And then go ahead and burnish that one. Okay, so that will be that page. And like I said, we'll keep it closed with a little piece of paper that can be used as a tuck. All right, so then we'll turn it over and work on the back. This side is easy. So what we're gonna do is, I'm gonna have to paper these first. We're going to place 3 on one side and 3 on the other, like so. So I'm gonna put one all the way to the top, one all the way to the bottom, and then I'll center this middle one. And I'm gonna do that to the other side right across, and they'll have holes so that we can have tie closures with seam binding. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and paper mine first so I can punch. So if they're 2.5, we're gonna go 2 3/8. And they are 3 3/4, so we'll go 3 5/8. Okay, so once I have the paper on, I'm gonna punch holes and attach them. And then I'll put the decorative paper on after that. All right, so I covered all the tags. I did some double matting. If I were to do this a second time, I don't think I would use, this is red, and this is more like a, oh, I don't know. They're just different shades of red. I love the glossy, shiny stuff, but I'm not so sure I like it with the red, but I'm gonna go with it. So I have, this one is matted on that shiny red color, but you can't really tell. And then I cut out some of the papers from this and I just put them on the top and then put little buttons. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place one at the very top and one at the very bottom, and then I'll center this one in the middle, and then I'll do the same thing on this side. I'm going to put them all the way to the top and the bottom, and then I will center the middle one. I did punch holes, and that's where I'll take seam binding and tie, make a tie. I'm not sure, maybe it's kind of a pain though when you have the seam binding in each, and then when you untie it, you got to take it out. So maybe I'll do something a little bit different to put the ties on, but I'm going to go ahead and start gluing. I'm going to go and turn this way, and you're going to want to do the top and the bottom first. I just did white on the back, you can see. So I did angle cut the one at the bottom because it is going to be at the bottom of the paper. And I'm going to go all the way to the end. And I got to remember there's a 1/4 inch gusset there. I don't want to go over. See? Okay. And then I'll just open that up. Okay, and then I'll do the top one. Did I do that right? I should have angled this top one so that we don't have any overhang. And go all the way to the top and the bottom, or the top and the side. Okay, and then we want the one in the center. And I'm going to eyeball it. And that works. Okay, so I'll turn it around, do the other side, and you'll notice that they are opposite papers. I did it again. I need to... let's see. No, I wanted this one at the bottom. This one's at the top. Or maybe I should do it like that. No. Okay. So let's put the bottom one on first. All the way to the bottom and the edge here. Whoopsie, that's not what I wanted to do. There's that 1/4 inch gusset I got to be careful of. Okay, and I'll do the top one next. All the way to the top and the side. Get rid of your excess glue that comes running out there. And the middle. And you could do journaling on the back of these. You could have little pictures. I think that I would use it more for journaling and then have the pictures on the large base. Okay, so then I cut a 7 7/8 by 7 7/8 inch piece. Or did I? I forgot to do the other side. Let me cut that. 7 7/8. Why does that not look like it fits? Did I have it backwards? Oh, there we go. All right. And I don't want to go over any scores. Oh, that's going to be so cute. All right. Let's put our glue on. sure we got the edges nice and good. Okay. And now just line it up so that you don't go over that score and you have the same amount of space top and bottom. Let's make sure before we do a push down that that should work. And burnish. All right, and I'll just try and decide how I'll do the seam binding on that, because you definitely need something to keep these from flapping open. All right, now we are ready for the third and final page. All right, before we go into page 3, I want to go ahead and do the front and back cover, and they're going to be done the same way, so I can show you what it's going to look like here. This will have paper on it, but it has 2 doors with little tuck spots there so that you can tuck in the mat so that they stay closed. Places for pictures. And then I left the red and the blue. Now, the reason why is because, I'll show you, I have some older, well, they're not really old, but I have these little paper doll things. I have 2, I have a boy and a girl, and I want to stick them in the back, but I also have some clothes that come with it. I'm going to have to take them out of this, what's that? I'm going to have to take them out of this container and just lay them in here. But I thought that would be cute to store these in the back, like that. So that's why I am doing the front and back cover like that. I thought that would be perfect. So let's go ahead and do the same thing in the front. All right, this is kind of a mess, but you're gonna need 4 pieces that are 5 by 8.5, 4 that are 8.5 by 3.5, and 2 that are 4 3/4 by 4 3/4. So those measurements are for the front and the back combined. Okay, so let's go ahead and do our scoring. I have a mess right now on my desk. So we're going to take the 5 by 8.5 inch pieces, and we're going to get 2 score marks. We're going to do a 1/2 and 3/4, 1/2 and 3/4. So the 5 inches is across the top, 1/2 and 3/4. Okay. The pieces that measure 3.5 by 8.5, you're going to put the 3.5 inches across the top, score at 3. Do that to both pieces. And then the piece that is 4 3/4 by 4 3/4, we're going to cut that diagonally to make 2 triangles. So let me get, oh, so let's just cut that from corner to corner like that. And we're going to score at 1/2 on one side, and then I just flip it over to the other side and do it 1/2. So you have 1/2 on 2 sides. 1/2, go to the other corner, get the other side at that halfway mark. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead. Oh, I have a mess. So let's work with the triangle pieces first, being as we've got those handy. We're gonna cut out that square in the corner at an angle. And let's go, I should have done these twice. Let's get the burnishing done. And you'll see that there's little pieces out that we have to cut off. So just leave your scissors up against the paper and trim off that excess. And we'll do the same thing to this one. Trim off little extra piece. And cut out that square at an angle. Move those to the side. Let's take the 2 pieces that we measure, or that 5 inch by 9 inch. Was that right? 5 by 9? No, it's supposed to be 8.5. I cut these at 9, I think. Yep, I need to trim those. Oh my goodness. Okay. So 8.5 is the correct measurement. Go ahead and burnish those on the score lines. Sometimes it's hard to do that little 1/4 of an inch. I should have gone over it more than once when I was scoring, but I just did it once, I think. That looks about right. Okay. I'm going to do the smaller one first, see if that's easier. Probably doesn't make any difference. And now let's do the second one. Maybe that was a little easier, I don't know. So then you have a 1/4 inch gusset. Okay. While we've got these handy, you're going to need one of the 1/2 inch, well, let's miter the 1/2 inch section on both ends, on both pieces. You're going to need a 1/2 inch on the left and a 1/2 inch on the right because they're doors, okay? And we're going to glue these triangles down at the bottom, and we're going to line them up with the side and the bottom. Now the side is after you tuck in those scores, so it's just like so. Get my glue out. So put glue on both of those 1/2 inch pieces. I've got the scoring tucked underneath, and I'm going to line it up side, oopsie, and bottom. And give that a good burnish so it stays on there. And I see a little piece that doesn't have any glue, but it will now. Okay, let's repeat that then on the other side. So now I have the score on the right, and we're going to place this on the right. Tuck in those 2 pieces. Put your score behind. Okay. And then what I did was I put a 4, what was it, 4, hold on. These are 4 1/4, so I put a 4 1/8 by 6 1/8 inch piece of white on the back, and then I filled in the rest just with my scraps that I had. Okay, so those are the doors. Now before you put this on your book, you might want to put the paper on first. I think that might be easier. We do have these 2 little flaps, the smaller pieces then, that were 8.5 by 3.5. Let's just go ahead and give those a burnish. And we are going to miter those also. And you can corner around the tops. I like that look. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and corner around. Now I do want to put my pattern paper on first, so I'm going to just show you how to attach it to your book, and then I'll move on to page 3 just to save some time. All right, so go ahead and grab your book, and the first one you're going to want to put on are the 2 side pieces, and they go all the way, the left one goes all the way to the outside, and then make sure you check top and bottom. And then you'll put the other one, and you're going to want to make sure you don't go over that. You might want to put this one on first. I don't know. You just don't want to make sure you don't go over that spine so that when you close your book that it gets in the way. So double check that. Now after you have these glued on, then you're going to center these in between those two. You'll glue this one down all the way down to the bottom, and this one all the way to the top. Now before I push down, I make sure that my doors can close and adjust as needed. If you have it a hair long, you're going to have to go back and adjust it a little bit. And then just use your scraps for mats. I cut one that was 7.5 by 7.5. That's what it was 7.5 by 7.5. And that's what I used to keep the doors closed. Okay, so let me show you again. This is what it's going to look like. These are 4 1/8 by 6 1/8. And then because of those paper dolls that I have, I'm going to put in there. This didn't have to be decorative at all. So I wanted to use the plain paper. All right, so I'm going to move mine off to the side, and let's start talking about page 3. So I have my pieces cut. Let's start with the front of page 3. So you're going to need 4 pieces that are 5.5 by 3.5, one that is 1 1/4 by 9, and one that is 1 by 3 1/8. Okay. This one, I do have the pattern paper already cut, so I can kind of do this with you as we go. Let me get all this stuff out of the way. So here's my 3rd page, top. These are the 5.5 by 3.5 inch pieces, and on all of the 4 pieces, lay your 5.5 inches across the top of your scoreboard and score at 1/2. So do that to all 4, and then you can burnish those. And I'll just go ahead and do all 4 of them. Okay, let's go ahead and angle, let's do the miter. Cutting that at an angle from the score. And I have one more. Okay. So what we'll do is we're going to have a double flap. We're going to go all the way to the top and all the way to the bottom, and you'll have a space. You could bring them up a little bit if you want to. Maybe I will. Yeah, maybe I will. You will have double doors then. Then you're going to glue these on top so that you can get more pictures. So we'll glue those together. And then we're going to have a belly band right here where we're going to put a slider that will keep these closed. Okay, so let's go ahead and glue these pieces together. So you're just going to place one on top of the other. Make sure they're lined up. And you know the drill. Burnish. Get rid of that excess glue. Okay, let's do the other one. Open it up. And got a little excess there. Okay. Let's take the 1 1/4 by 9. You're going to place the long, the 9-inch side across the top. Score it 1/2 on each end. Mine was a little bit short when I cut it, so you're doing a 1/2 on each end. So I had to score mine a little bit differently to compensate for my cut. And then I already have my paper cut at 1 1/8 that I'm going to put on. Yeah, put it on top. Okay, so center that. Okay, and now we need that little piece. That's 1 by 3 1/8. And you're going to place the 3 1/8 across the top, score at 1/2 and at 1 7/8. 1/2 and 1 7/8. Okay, we're going to burnish those, and then we're going to use this as part of the mechanism to put the slider on to keep those little flaps closed. So I'm going to put glue on the little piece here and bring the longer piece on top. And you don't need to put any pattern paper on here. I mean, you can if you want. If you did, you would just need to do it on the back. I'm going to go ahead and put this on my belly band. It's kind of wet still. Okay. What else? Is that all we have to do for that page? I think so. So then I took a cut apart and I matted it to make it a little bit more firm. And this will be able to slide up and down. The pattern paper, or the paper I'm going to use for these, I'm going to use more of a solid on the inside. So I've got a cream colored polka dot and the blue colored polka dot. That's going to be on the inside. And then I'm going to do a matte on the outside, and then I want a little bit of a border. So you can cut that the way you like. Okay, so let's do the insides real quick. Okay, so this will be on the back one. I already inked my edges. And don't go over that score. I always want to make sure that those corners get down. Okay, and behind the first piece, I'm doing that cream color. And I do my mats 1/8 of an inch smaller. Okay, and I already have my mats cut. So on both of them, on the inside, I'm going to do the mat toward the inside with the decorative on the outside. And on the front, I'm going to do it just the opposite. So on the inside here, and I did I ink these? No, I didn't ink the white. For some reason, when it's the matte, I kind of like it to stay white. All right, and we want to make sure we put it in a spot that's going to be clear of our fold. I don't know if I've got that on that straight. And then I'm going to place this little strip on the end. I want to make sure I line it up. Yep. Okay. And on the front. So this one I want on the end. And I will go back and add my ephemera, my cutouts or cut apart, whatever they're called. Okay. And you can adjust the measurements for the matting, of course, any way you like it. All right, so what I need to do though is I want to determine where I put these two flaps with the belly band. So I need to see how far over this goes. And then when you move it down, I guess I'm going to kind of move mine in toward the center a little bit. Okay, I'm just going to do this one real quick so I can attach it. All right, white on the outside. You can fast forward this part. Glue. And I do think I'm going to have to add something to add a little pizzazz to the front here, whether it's just a little corner tuck of some sort or I just don't know yet. Okay, did I do the yellow or the tan first? Yeah. Some people do their matting 1/4 of an inch. I'd usually do 1/8, but on that back, on the back cover that I did, that dark blue on the, when you lift the flaps, that one I did make 1/4 because I had, it's covered when the doors are closed, but I had a paper already and it was cut 1/4 of an inch. I didn't want to waste a piece of paper, so I just did, I went with that measurement, you know, figuring that nobody would really see it unless the door was open. And I don't think it'll be noticeable. This one we're going to do toward the inside, remember? Don't go over the score. I don't know what paper. Oh yeah, I do. I have it cut. I forgot. I just can't wait to see it with those paper dolls in there. And, oh, I need that little strip. These don't look like they line up exactly like the front does, but I can always add a little something to cover up. I think I'm actually keeping this book. Now that I have a grandbaby, I'm going to have plenty of pictures to put in here. So I'm going to probably keep this one. And my goal is to actually put real pictures in. I always make these books and use them as artwork and just display them, and I never seem to put pictures in like I should. But they do look so nice when they do have pictures in. I need to be better. That looks a little crooked. Okie dokie. So let's go up. I want them evenly spaced. So if I go, how much is this? I'm gonna turn it sideways. Bring it up a 1/2 inch. I better go a little bit lower, about a 1/4 inch. Yeah, I'm gonna go a 1/4 inch. So I'm gonna put glue on that 1/2 inch piece. Make sure your book's going the right direction. And I'm just gonna kind of eyeball it. And make sure it's straight. A little bit of glue coming out. Okay, and the other one about a 1/4 inch. Looks fine to me. So now we put the belly band on. I'm going to glue this on last, but I kind of want to see where this needs to be. So I might just center that. Well, how far in is that? Looks like I'm going in, let's do a 1 1/4 inches. So I'm going to put glue. This one you don't have to miter because it's not at the end of a page. And I said about a 1 1/4 or close to it. Glue down the other end. You know what I'm going to do to make this easier when I'm going to leave this open for right now. I'm going to flip these open, and I'm going to lay the large piece of paper down, and before I glue it up here, then I'll tuck this underneath. because sometimes it's hard to get them underneath. This is what I chose. Yeah, that's going to be much easier. So I'm going to put my fingers here just so I know not to put glue right there. I sometimes fight with the paper trying to tuck it underneath. Okay. Before I give it a burnish, now I'll go ahead and tuck that underneath. Yeah, that made my life much easier. Giving everything a nice burnish. Okay. And now we'll just decide where we want. I think I want it over a little bit more. So, about right, probably by about there. So I'm going to put it up on the edge of my scoreboard here so I can look at it and keep it straight. And I just need to put glue on this little guy, the slider. Give it a good burnish. And then of course you can tuck mats in underneath and they're not going to go anywhere. Okay. Okay. And then you would slide that down to open it. So there's that. I'm happy with the way that looks. And now flip it over and we have one last page and then we're done. Just got to put them in put them on the spine or the hinge, excuse me. Let me pick up this paper here. Okay, so let me move this and let's take a look at the measurements for page 3 on the back. Again, it's kind of messy. We're going to do one that's 8 by 8.5, one that's 8.5 by 8.5, and 2 that are 9 by 3.5. Okay, I have those cut. So let's do our, where did I put them? Here they are. Let's do our scoring. So on both of the 3.5 by 9 inch pieces, it's going to be a pocket. So we're going to score it on 3 sides. So you're going to score at 1/2 and at 8.5, and then turn it so that the 3.5 inches is across the top, score it 1/2. Do that to both pieces. Take the piece that is 8 by 8.5, place the 8.5 inches across the top, score at 1/2. And the 8.5 by 8.5 gets 2 score marks. So you'll score at 1/2, rotate 1 time, and score at 1/2. All right. And let's go ahead and burnish those score lines. This red paper seems to be just a little bit thicker to me. I don't know if I'm just going crazy or what, but I'm going to go ahead and cut out that corner at an angle for right now. And I'm going to wait on anything else with this piece for a second. Let's go ahead and angle the 1/2 inch. And let's do our pockets. And then we'll do our cutting. So go ahead and miter at the top on both sides. And we're going to cut out the square at an angle on each side. There's another one. Here we go. I already did that. Miter the top. And cut out the square at an angle. All right, so this will be a flap that goes on the top of the page. Where is my page? So this will go at the top. But I do want an angled pocket on here that I can use to store more pictures. And I'm going to put a pocket on top of that angled pocket. And our pockets are 3 inches. So I'm going to measure up 3 inches. And I think I'll only go like 1.5 or 2 at the top. Well, maybe I should go all the way to the corner. No, I'll go over a little bit. Okay, so here's what we need to do. Because our pocket is 3 inches tall, we need to measure up. So there's my 1/2 inches are tucked under. From the bottom, I'm going to put a little tick mark at 3 inches from the bottom. So 8, there's 1, 2, 3. Put a little tick mark. And I just kind of want to look to see what kind of angle I'm going to want. Do I want it like that? Do I want it 1 inch? I don't think I want it 3. That's too big. I think I'm just going to go over about 1.5 inches. Okay, and then I'm going to put that in my cutter. See if I can get it to fit in this one. And it's going to be tricky. But I think I got it. Barely, but... I need to erase that little pencil mark. And let's see if our pocket fits then. I need to do a little bit more. It's so close. It says it's at 3. This is about 1/16. Yikes. It's just so close. So you might have to make some adjustments also. So I'm going to put, I still want it at that 1/2 up here. But now I'm going to have to move this over just a little bit. And let's see if that did the trick. I hope so. Yes, it did. Okay. So then what we're going to do is glue this on the 3 sides. The glue's getting gross. My hands are too. I get a lot of glue on my hands right now. All three sides get glue. Pinch in those sides. Go all the way to the bottom. Yes, that's much better. So when you go to mat this, ended up being an 8 by 8. So you're going to cut out a piece that's 7 7/8 by 7 7/8. And instead of going over 1.5 inches, you'll go cut your paper at 1 3/8. And instead of going up to 3, you're going to go up to 2 7/8. And then that should be how you map that one. Okay. So now let's go ahead and attach it to our flap. So go ahead and make sure the 1/2 inch is at the top. And we're going to lay it down just like so. I'm going to angle these because they do go all the way to the top and bottom. So on the 1/2 inch on both ends. Okay. Almost done. I think this is turning out super cute. It helps when you have super cute paper. All right, bring it all the way down to the bottom. Look at the side. Ooh, very firm. Now I need a little bit more glue right there. I probably am not going to put anything underneath this flap so that it doesn't get too bulky, but I might make this like a layout. That's what I'm thinking anyway. That is yet to be determined. Okay, so then the only thing we need to do is add the pocket to the bottom here. Again, more space to store pictures. And that's just going to go all the way down like so. I feel like this is not... There we go. Okay. Pinch in the two sides all the way to the bottom, and voila. And that is our 3rd page. What did I forget? Oh, I forgot to glue this on top. Let's do that now. I'm going to turn it upside down just so it's easier for me to see if I'm lining it up correctly. And I'm going all the way to the top. Kind of reminds me of a sailor hat in a way. The way it looks, kind of, or a boat. All right. done. And so I will put on my pattern paper, and I do have a walkthrough, or I'm going to do a walkthrough, so I will link that below in the description box so that you can take a look at it if you have any questions on how I decorated it. All right, I love it. All right, there you go. Oh, I should probably show you how we put it in the spine. Or the hinge, I mean. I'm just gonna show you real quick. So you're gonna put glue on the hinge itself. I go about 1/4 of the, this is about a 1/2 inch. I go down with glue about 1/4 of an inch on each side. Hold on. Gotta make sure I got this right. And you're going to slide it on, and you don't go all the way to the bottom. You're going to leave about 1/4 of an inch from the bottom so it lays flatter. And you want it to lay like so. And I have some bulkiness on the back, so mine's not going to lay all the way flat, but don't go all the way to the bottom. And then if you want, you can come back and put in pattern paper in your gussets too. And because they're wider gussets, I definitely will do that. So let me just remind you again, put glue 1/4 of an inch way down, 1/4 of an inch down, slide your booklet on, and then just keep kind of squeezing it until you've got a real good hold. And then I would go back and put in the paper after you have your hinges, or the pages. I always start at the back and move to the front. I don't know why, I just always have. So, all right. If you have any questions, go ahead and let me know. All right, thanks everybody.